everybody, welcome to Robert's Train Set. This is really going to be a bit different to what I normally do. It's not a running session. The train running around on the outer layout at the moment is something to do with it. I was thinking, I do it sometimes, and there's an awful lot said about the cost of model railways. You know, it's too expensive and all that. And yes, I technically agree with that. It is quite an expensive hobby. However, there are all different shades of train sets, aren't there? Model railways train sets. So, if you want your child to get into it at a young age, you can buy something like that. Okay, it's not a model railway as such, but it works. They can control it, well, in a fashion, with a switch, and it runs round. And I actually used this on one of my Christmas ones. My wife bought this before I got into model railways, which to be honest isn't strictly true. I was into train sets at a young age when my mum bought me a little layout, and I built it up and I built it up. And as I've said before, I had to get it out every time I went to use it, put it away and whatever. And there was quite a bit of stuff to get out and connect up. I had electric points and signals and turntables and, well, you name it, I had it. On the floor, okay? What I can remember of those times, I just took it apart, put it away, got it out, put it together, put it down on the floor, connected it up, boom, it worked. Every time. Never had any queries or problems or anything. It seemed to always run. What I can remember. So life gets in the way sometimes. Now, some people are very lucky and have that lifelong obsession their whole lives, and you see the benefits of that in their YouTube videos. I didn't. I did other things. I did sailing and whatever, and work, and at the end of the day I was quite tired really after my work. I didn't even think of it, to be honest, to be absolutely honest. Once I retired and after poor Marilyn passed away, silly little things. A chap a couple of doors away, he's got a little model railway at the end of his shed which he still hasn't completed, and he sort of does a bit and then he loses interest and he goes and does his allotment, which I suppose is a bit better for him, I don't know actually. But it got me looking, and I looked on YouTube and I could see the old trains going around, and I just got into it again. And I have documented this in other videos, but I just thought I'd quickly go through. So basically, if anybody is thinking of getting into doing train sets like I've got, or a model railway with all the scenery and all that involves, you do need to have a little think of what you want out of the hobby, I think. I've had a young lad who's going to get a bigger layout, and he asked me some advice. Now, I'm not really the one to ask advice. I've only been doing it 18 months, and I don't count all the stuff when I was a kid because it's completely different. So I think the thing that I've had to overcome since I started this was the size. I think the first thing you need to do is decide on the size of the layout you want, and the bigger the better really, I would say. If you can get a 10 foot by a 5 foot board wherever you're going to do it, do it. You know, if it's double that size, fine. If you can't, get as big a board as you can. Now mine's on the dining room table, so there's a limit to how much I can expand it, as you can imagine. And it's not a very big dining room table. You know, it's a 4 foot diameter round oak table that extends a little bit each end. So there's a limit to what you can get. So anyway, I started off with a 6x4, and I got a 6x4 because I felt the cheapest way to get into model railways with what I wanted, and I wanted quite a big extensive layout to start with because that's what I'd had as a kid. And as I said, I bought that from Hatton's. And the Majestic train set had everything I wanted. It had double track, It was controlled by, it was DCC, it was controlled by the computer through the interface, which I wanted, and I decided all this, and I definitely wanted DCC. I definitely wanted sound from DCC. So that's what I bought, and I bought obviously bits with it as well. Now that initial set, it might seem a lot of money, £250, but you know, you've got an awful lot for your money. You know, you've got the 2 lots of track, you've got all the control system, two complete trains, albeit quite short ones, but 2 complete trains, and all the stuff you needed to control what you had. So I bought the Majestic train set, and some bits, as I said, and then I had to buy all the equipment you need for operating the points, which I did in the initial order. Sort of looked into it a bit, so did all this, and I got it set up. And as you've seen over the 8 or 9 months I've been doing it, the train set has grown. It's got bigger from what it originally was, and I've now got a reasonable layout. I can run things on, and the thing I like, and maybe other people don't, I like to run fairly long trains. I'm not a great lover of short trains, unless that's what you would run. So, you know, a suburban service might only be a couple of carriages or 3 carriages, so I'm happy to run those. But mainline and that, you know, they'd always be quite a few carriages. Can't have the full rates because the layout's not big enough. So there we are. So I think what I'm going to say now is what I've just said is my experience and what I wanted. It's down to you to decide what you want and how far you want to go. And if it's a parent buying a train set for a young lad or a young lady, there are lots of ladies in our hobby, just see whether they like it first. So, you know, a simple layout like that, you know, if they're enthused with that, then maybe go on to the proper stuff. If you want to go to actual model railway type layout, train set, then I'm not sure you can still buy it, but they do other things. You can buy one of these, which I think has been mentioned in other videos. Sam's Trains does some on them. Very good place to go to if you really want budget and not spend a lot of money is Budget Model Railways. They do a fantastic job on showing how to do a model railway for the minimum amount of money. They do tend to on sort of 040 locos or 060 locos and very small wagons and small carriages and whatever. But if that's what you want, or you haven't got enough room to do what I've got here, then that's great. So go and visit their channels and have a look. So I bought this because basically I wanted some Pullman carriages and some extra track, and I got a Tornado to boot as well. This was not DCC, this is analogue. And there are plenty of YouTube videos on the difference between DCC and DC. I don't need to go into that. The simplest thing to say is DC is simpler, although it can be quite complicated. If you look at Barry Davis's layout, that's DC, but that is quite a complicated setup. DCC, I think, gives you more control. It's as simple as that. You get more control and you can have sounds going like we've got here. So this video, and I'm sorry I'm talking a lot, but that's what I felt I wanted to do. It's really not on the actual layout, not buying the layout. That Tornado train set I bought from Argos for £99, £99.50 I think. They still, I think, sell it, but it's gone up to about 114. I don't know why. Maybe they've upgraded the Tornado engine, because there is a new Tornado engine in the railroad range. It's better than that, I think. So this video is going to be about the cost of the trains that are actually running, and they can vary tremendously in the cost of what you're running on the layout. So I'm going to get my toothless mug off this screen, and I'm going to do a little bit of handheld and just give you a little bit of an insight into the cost of some of the things I run, and hopefully a little bit into the difference between DCC costs and DC costs, although not very much because I haven't got much DC stuff. In fact, no DC will run on this layout. So I'd just like to thank all my subscribers that have come on, new ones, and I'd also like to thank all the subscribers that wish me well after my little tumble in the street, and you'll be pleased to know that I am beginning to get a bit better. So I'm quite pleased. Obviously no teeth yet, but never mind. I hope no young children will be frightened by my appearance. I'm not really a Dracula, honest, I'm not, no. Anyway, we'll carry on and I'll show you some of the bits. Alright, cheers, bye. Okay everybody, so we'll start at the beginning, and I'm going to quote costs in this video, and I haven't just taken them out of my head because we all forget how much we pay for this and how much. So I did actually get all my receipts and invoices from the loft and go through them, and I transferred those sort of costs onto this sheet of paper. Yes, I know it looks a muddle and I won't show you it so you can read it, but I've basically broken down my engines and my rolling stock into cost pieces really, and the train that you can see going around at the moment, and excuse me because I'll have to have the bit of paper with all the costs on, but our Class 40 Hornby locomotive with sound, and my 10 TTA wagons that I've not very well weathered, but at least they don't look quite as childish as they do in their normal state. This is in essence a reasonable train to run around. It, you know, it's a reasonable amount of length. Sounds good, the loco looks good, and probably even the era is probably right, although whether they'd have had a British Rail blue loco pulling them, I don't know, it's probably been a freight one. But this total train running around here with sound, when I find it, is a total amount of £115.25. So for just over £115 you can have this rake, this train running around. Doesn't obviously include weathering the wagons or whatever. And be warned, I've looked on Hattons recently, and the sort of deals that you get with these don't appear to be going on very much. I managed to buy 2 lots of 3 of these for £20, which is pretty good value, isn't it? So there we are. So that's the cheapest I've got with what I would call, you know, a decent rake. So there we are. So going on from Class 40 with the TTA wagons, I did say that I'm happy to run a train with less, you know, with a reasonable number of carriages. So just to prove that point, running around the layout now, it's one of my newest locos, Maud, pulling some of my newest carriages, which are the non-corridor suburban carriages, lined, and I've got 3 of them on there. So I believe that you would term that as a reasonable rate for this, and that's probably what they might have run with. And also the loco may well have pulled them. I'm not sure if it's exactly the right era or even the right railway, but it's possible. J36s were quite numerous, I think, as a loco. So this rake actually totals £164.50, and the majority of that, to be honest, is obviously the loco. It's a very nice loco. You could obviously connect the class 40 diesel to this, which would reduce it by quite a bit, but you know, it wouldn't be quite a proper train, would it? I don't think. So as Maud chugs her way round the inner loop of the railway, could you put another engine in the place of Maud? The Ginty 060, and it could well have pulled these coaches. In fact, it's probably more likely to have done than Maud. So why haven't I put this locomotive on the front of this train? The answer really simply is DCC. You can buy a DC LMS Ginty like this one for £38, and I did, because I originally had a different variant of this and it broke on me. So I bought this as a DC model and then took the DC components off the other one and connected it all up and got it running, and it does. So if you add the £38 loco to the front of this train, it's considerably cheaper, obviously. So if you were running DC, you would have a lot cheaper train than any of mine, probably. But just to give you an idea of the costs, so that £38 basic locomotive, to convert it to DC sound, which is what I try to do, is you've got to buy a decoder. Now you can't have a Hornby decoder because they don't seem to make one for this. So that's one of the more expensive, and it is quite expensive, about £115. And then I got Hattons to fit it, which was a further 28, which if you then add that all together, would come out at, well, in my case, 168, because the Ginty I originally bought was only £25, but the new one was 38. So you can see, you know, it really bumps the cost up. And just to really emphasise, when you change DC locomotives to DCC that aren't originally fitted at the factory, I shall show you a really big example of it. So excuse me a moment while I relocate the camera. In shot is my Thompson L1. This was an original DC model, and the actual cost of this model as DC was only £104, and it was a very detailed, very nice model, except for the front bogie, of course. But by the time you add the decoder on, similar cost to the Ginty, and the fitting, this comes out at an astronomical £241. And in essence, this is my most expensive locomotive of the whole lot. Bears thinking about, doesn't it? But it's a nice loco, and I'm glad I got it. So, now we'll head on to the more expensive trains that run on my layout. And one of the fairly expensive ones for my layout is the HST in the Swallow livery. But of course, it's not just a case of buying the power cars. you've also got to add to it some carriages. Now a typical rake of these would have been 7 carriages and the 2 power cars, making a 9-car train. Yes, I would like to do that, but on this layout I think it would be really unpractical, so I only plumped for 5 centre carriages. And with the carriages coming in at £31.50 each, and the 2 power cars, with only of course one that's got an engine in, at 239. So if we add all that up, this train running around here has a grand total of £396.50 worth. So, you know, a fairly substantial amount of money. But it does look good, and I love running it. And you can run it backwards or forwards, which helps. It runs backwards just as well as it does forwards. So is it worth it? Well, for me, yes, it is. And again, you know, if you didn't want to do DCC, it can be substantially cheaper, although you still have to pay the money for the carriages. So the cost of railways are not always the cost of the engines. You've got to think of the bits that you're going to be pulling with it. So is this my most expensive train? Well, no, unbelievably it's not. And I will show you that next, after we've had a little bit of running with this. But I'm sure you agree with me, it's a nice looking train. Not only in model form, but in real life as well. Got a real presence. So, my most expensive train is just coming into shot now. It's my £203.50 Bachmann 47, and my rake of container wagons, all 6 of them. And this is my most expensive rake of train. So the container wagons themselves cost £232.90, added to my £200 plus 47 means you have a price of £436.85 for this train running around here. But this isn't actually quite true, because if I took the 47 off and put the Thompson L1 on, that would then go up to £473.90. But would you run a Thompson L1 with container wagons? Probably not. Only in my video called Daft Trains could you do that. So effectively this is my most expensive train. So you say, well, we've had a couple of freight trains, a high-speed train, and a suburban train. What of a mainline train? So I mentioned at the beginning the Tornado train set. So this is the Tornado locomotive from that set, and yes, I've added sound to it. And obviously you have to estimate how much of the engine is the price of the £99 railway. So I've been as fair as I can, and it does stick from time to time, as you saw. So I took as a figure £60 for the locomotive in DC form, and I then put in the decoder. It's a Hornby decoder at £36 when I bought it, now probably 38. So the 5 carriages connected to this engine are the maroon carriages from the eastern region, and each carriage costs £12. So we have a total value of £60 added to the locomotive, and it comes to a grand total of £156 together, which I don't think is too bad. So we'll wait for it to stall on the point again, which this time it didn't. And this engine and its sister engine on accord, which came with the Majestic train set, are a bit temperamental, I must admit. But I like them, they're nice. So having turned off the tornado sound so you can hear me, what have we in the station here? We have the Bachmann 101 DMU with lights and sound. Does this qualify for a cheap train? Not really, at £199. Not cheap at all. Now the next one, which if we can see it nestling in the station, is the 411 EMU, so the electric unit by Bachmann, a 4-car unit that comes together. And this basically is my cheapest proper train, £100 worth. But bear in mind I bought it at Cash Converters, and I did beat the chap down to £100 from 130 he wanted. And I have noticed that this particular unit, although it may be a revised one, I don't know, from Bachmann, is currently on sale in Hatton's for over £300. I don't think I would have paid that for it. It may well have sound, I don't know, but you can see what we're talking about. And when I bought this at £100, they were being sold for £205, so I suspect the Bachmann is a new one, or a new tooling or something, although it doesn't look any different, I must admit. So that's that one. Anything else? If you want to go down the DC route, if we pan around to the engine area, engine shed, in the engine shed we have the 4MT tank. This is a Bachmann model. This has just got a DCC chip in it, but no sound, and I don't think you can fit sound in it anyway because it's too small inside. This new, from I believe Hatton's, but I'm not absolutely certain, was, when I can find it on the list, £79.50, which is good, isn't it? But if you consider it to the class 40 at £74 with sound and all DCC chipped up, I had to put the chip in this, and it's a very fiddly body, I must admit, the most fiddly one I've had. There we are, and the Tornado is still having a tea break at that point. Yeah, so you could do that. And there are definitely cheaper engines to have, absolutely. You can buy pugs for, you know, just over £20 or so. You can buy little carriages, and you can run a train around for a considerable amount less than I'm running here. But it depends what you want, doesn't it? If you're happy to have a little layout with some small locos and some small carriages or goods vehicles and a bit of shunting, that's what's good for you. It's what you want. So please take what I've said as me, nobody else. We're all individual. We all like what we like, whether that be a huge layout in the loft or the garden shed, or a reasonable size on this table here, 8 foot by 4 foot, plus the fiddle yard. It's the enjoyment you get from it. And I must admit, I get a lot of enjoyment from just doing these videos as well, showing it off. It's all we're doing really, I suppose. So I'm going to leave you now, and I hope you've enjoyed this and it's not been too boring. And sorry that we haven't got any real big close-ups or anything, but that's not what this video is about. This video is about just giving you a rough insight into my experience with having this model railway, or as I call it, a train set. And it is a train set. Just a final word on the actual track and the control system is you can spend a lot of money on buying different gauge tracks, different detail of tracks and different running systems. I've got really one of the cheapest ones here, the Hornby Elite, and I'm happy with it, but a lot of people aren't. So you, as in everything in life, you make your choice and take your pick, or take your pick and make your choice, whichever you prefer. Anyway, hope you've enjoyed it. Any comments would be welcome. Any inaccuracies pointed out would be welcome as well. And I'll leave you on a final note. Having looked through Hatton's last night, there don't seem to be the deals that I've got on a lot of the stuff on this layout. There doesn't seem to be a 40 for sale at that price. They have still got the 37, but it's not listed, whatever that means, I don't know. So if you started this layout now, I would suspect you would be spending more money. But I hope this hasn't put you off doing a model railway or a train set, because it is a super hobby, Anyway, thanks for watching. Again, thank you all my subscribers and all my new ones. And look out for my next video, which should hopefully be a running session. Cheers. Bye bye.